Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, good night, whatever time it is you see fit to allow us to share your space and be in community with us. I'm Attorney Larry Fields, and I'm joined this morning by Dr. Charles Alexander and the Mike Jones, and we are three of the force of the quintet of the level set, and we're going to get right to it and be judicious with your time this morning.
Yeah, we the three musketeers were waiting on D'Artagnan, right?
Absolutely. We're going to go directly to Dr. Charles Alexander so we can delve into our topics this morning.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Um, so today we're gonna have a couple of conversations. Um, I think that more or less take us from, 50s, 58 in particular, and bring us forward. And so on a daily basis, so like I have my calendar set up for the birthdays of just people. Um, so significant Black folks in the diaspora. And so I believe Friday was the birthday of Sekou Toure, and yesterday was the birthday of Max Roach. And so, and I think there's always time to talk about both of those gentlemen. Um, but I think Sekou Toure is very relevant today because of the brothers in the Sahel now, because of the brothers and their alignment between Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and Max Roach is just always relevant, because again, our aesthetic centers around sports and jazz, and he's prominent in that space, and he is definitively African centered. And so we'll start off a bit with Max Roach, and and I think Max Roach, like I became familiar with We Insist and the Freedom Now suite, which I think he did in 1960. Few jazz musicians play with him on there, and Abby Lincoln is featured as a songstress. And I came across that I've probably been listening to that for about at least 5 years that I've been listening to that. But I hadn't really done much other reading or study about him other than I would pick that up from time to time and listen to it. But he is really a fascinating brother, and I came across this clip where he was. It's a clip that is advertising a PBS special that was centered around the life and work. And the beginning of the clip, it starts with this. This is Max Roach. Well, jazz is to me a nickname. To me, it's synonymous to nigger and things like that. That's not a proper name for African American instrumental music. It never was a name that we as musicians gave to it. It was a name that was just given to it. And so then the interviewer asks, "So you're not a jazz musician?" And Max Roach responds, "No, I am an African American musician, and that's the kind of music that I play." And so I just found that to be a very fascinating quote, because what I came to realize is that um, one of the things that he believed was that um, that that jazz and the term jazz was just it was a way that white folks used to minimize and disrespect the cultural art of African Americans, Black folks, and so I really appreciated the his self-determined take, and his thought that at that time, or over the course of the time, that there was this word in this context, this externally proposed context of jazz, that it existed much like everything else. Like he said, he liked it. He compared the need for the term jazz to the need for classical and symphony music to have a director. He said, we don't need no director. We just play. And when he said, I would think about Mike. I would think about D. Mike Jones, because that sounds like something that Mike Jones says, right? It's like we just come together and play, and that's Max Roach. He's like the guy in the symphony. He's there to control. He said, and this ain't about control. And so, but he has all of these conversations that just speak to the various cultural art forms that we have and that we live, and he just likens all of these things to the manifestation of um, African um, creativity and resilience, and so I just wanted to bring him to us because I thought he could be a very heavy and large centerpiece for further discussion.
He's more than a brick in the wall. His statements reminded us that we're still under colonial control.
Mm-hmm.
And what he did in that statement was what we talk about doing here, which is number one, resisting, but it was more than that. And that statement was a building statement. And on top of that, it was a building ethos and creativity. But the statement with respect to the conductor, there is a universal heartbeat of the earth. And the reason why you don't have to script plays in basketball, the reason why Miles Davis says there's no such thing as a wrong note, it's just the one that comes after it. The reason why we don't have to have sheet music, the reason why we don't have to script every single, uh, have a treatment for every single show is because there's a part of our humanity and a part of our Africanness that allows us to walk and to perform in sync with the universe. And it's manifested in applications. If you watch us dance, if you listen to our beat or our music, it's there. It is in sync with the heartbeat of the universe. If you watch, other individuals that are in countersync with that, it is painfully obvious. There's a reason why there are individuals that go and destroy the earth wherever they go. They overform, they over produce, and so forth. But I just wanted to add that, and to add that we are welcomed by Kwame Christmas. We want to welcome Kwame Christmas, and we'll go to Mike Jones for his comments.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Charles, as you was talking, I was struck by the context and because jazz, the term came out of New Orleans in the 1880s, 1890s. It was the music that was being formed at the time, and it was really black musicians taking some European instruments and some states of European music and turning it into something else, something brand new. And as you were saying, and Larry was alluding to, white America always comes up with names for what we do that are meant to denigrate or minimize whatever it is we're doing. But as you were talking, I was struck by something and literally being a somebody who came of age was incubated in the literally in the 60s. And this moment we're referencing, one of the big debates that was always going on internally was, what do we call this? Well, white folks called it X, so we got to call it Y. And that was a thing. But as I've gotten older, and uh, I don't think about that as much, but what Charles was referencing, it just struck me how powerful what we do is. Because no matter what white folks call it, we can take the same name and literally redefine the universe with it. So that whatever it was they meant is no longer relevant, because how we have redefined whatever the concept was, it's ours now. And the world relates to the definition by how we defined it, not how uh, uh, they defined it, because something that we will hear in our daily routines and depending on where your daily routine takes you, you can hear it quite often, but you will always encounter it. My nigga is a term of endearment when we use it. I mean, whatever white folks meant by it, that ain't what it means no more. Okay, so that.
Kwame still the hairs still rise up on the back of his neck whenever he hears that word.
But I'm talking about inside of the context of our reality. We take it's what we did with food. It's what we
It's
did with
called
every.
improvisation.
Right. Thank you. The essence of quote jazz is the improvisation of the moment. So nobody gets to define us. I guess
And 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 that's Mike, that is so powerful because if you name a thing, you can control a thing.
right.
And that's typically what happens. But I think that another level of our maturity needs to come. Um, and it's still a telltale sign of just how colonized we are. This week, and I don't want to get off subject too far, gentlemen, but this week we've heard in a number of different corners of the disgust that individuals in our community have because sinners didn't receive the nominations that they think they supposed to have. But at what point do you mature to the extent that you understand that
I
you're
don't need that.
that I don't need
I
that?
need that.
And
I
And
don't.
you
I
I
can't
mean
don't.
I
have it
mean
both ways.
I
We
have
plant this stuff
I
and we
have two
want that.
daughters in the industry, and I'm constantly, telling them that these people are they are your eternal enemy. Why in the world would you care about the way they think about your art?
Mhm.
And literally the Max Roach and his colleagues, his contemporaries, and the artists and musicians that preceded him, this music exists because none of those men and some of those women who were also major players in this ever let their music, themselves, their art be defined by white folks. Louis Armstrong did not go to Juilliard to figure out how to be Louis Armstrong.
And Mike, and Mike, you said something last week. Uh, when after Dr. Alexander read the quote from Frederick Douglass, you talked about how you've evolved to understanding the complexity and the simplicity and the beauty of what Frederick Douglass did and at that time. I maintain that the individuals that are judging our art form don't even have the chops nor the maturity to do that. If you can't taste barbecue, you certainly should not be judging these things.
right.
But there's something about the white hegemony that gives them and empowers them the chutzpah to do so.
But
So,
the issue, our relationship with them is a power relationship. So, and the physical reality is that we are often on the short end of the power equation, power relationship. But the genius of the African diaspora in the United States has been our ability to take literally what they think is nothing and transform it into a work of art, a way to redefine reality. And if you think about America for just a minute, and we're gonna go to the continent after we leave here, but think about America in the 21st century, the end of the 20th century. Literally everything that defines America to the world is a creation of black people. If we exited the space, America has no cultural frame of reference in human history. So there, despite the imbalance in the power relationship, we art defines reality, not the contemporary power. It is because art is the underpinning of ultimately culture, and we have defined and extended the culture of the United States. That there is literally no way to access, understand, whatever term or what you want to use, the United States unless you come by us. Because nothing makes sense till you talk to us. And no, and two white boys like Mick Jagger and Keith Richards get on an airplane because they go get money to be on Ed Sullivan. And the first thing that they got to America early so they could take a flight to Chicago to see Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters. So that's why they came to America. They didn't. The gig was the Ed Sullivan show. I want to meet the masters. Okay, and that happens literally all over the world. We are ignorant of the footprint that we have, and that's why we chase Academy Awards and all of that. I think fundamentally everybody black in that genre should be like Marlon Brando and George C. Scott, man. He said, I'm an artist, I'm an actor. You can't classify who's good, who's bad. People do this, and the art speaks for itself. And I don't, and the war is basically bullshit and irrelevant. So if I get it, okay. If I don't get it, it don't matter. Miles Davis is Miles Davis, no matter if he never gets a Grammy. John Coltrane is a defining moment in American music. So,
And it's still insulting to me that you think you have the chops to judge it. Yeah, I mean, it's just I hear everything you're saying, but the fact is that it's an insult to me that you think, even in this power struggle that you have the power to judge it, and it is just prevalent throughout society, and throughout Western culture. There will be individuals online on TV all day talking about geopolitical things that they have no knowledge about. I listened to what's Gary's last name? Played for the Lakers. Gary Payton was on NBA radio a couple of years ago, and he was talking about the effectiveness of his son and how his son was so effective, and how his son controlled the game through defense. He talked about picking up a man 92 feet away from the rim, and affecting the opponent's entire philosophy for that day because they could not get into their sets before they were 10 minutes, 10 seconds into the shot clock, and how that changed the game. And you could hear the birds swirling around the head of the white commentator because he could not grasp how that could happen. And that explains exactly what we go through on a daily basis. Kwame,
but Larry, I just want to add that's always the internal tension in us, both individually and collectively. And I think you have to come down one place or the other, and both places are legitimate. And that rage, that anger is righteous. But I've kind of taken the other side of the approach. I'm kind of Michael Jordan, Larry Bird. I don't give a fuck because you can't guard me. We can play
and
anywhere you want, anywhere, anywhere.
that it has to be it's not just to spot issues.
Right,
It's to apply and to
right,
build. I
right,
mean, it does. We're the best issue spotters in the world. We can
right.
tell you everything wrong, and we're the
But
best.
but but
And
but
we can create
but
an
once you
entire resistance model. But
but but
that's
but
but even in your resistance model is in response to colonialism. And as long as you're responding to colonialism, you're not going to get where you're supposed to be. You have to do both. You have to build and at the same time.
and I agree. The question is, you can't. Here's what that I used to describe to people. Say, what does it mean to be a practicing politician? I say, being a professional politician, I tell people, I say, how y'all to think of it is about being a professional athlete who plays on the road. When you're playing on the road, the public are the fans of the team, and they're not rooting for you. Okay, they may respect your game at best, but they never are rooting for you. The media, the pundit class, or the referees, and the home team always pays the referees. So you never get a call when you're on the road. But I tell people, though, but if you want to be a champion, you got to win on the road. So fuck where you play. It's 94 by 50, and the basket's 10 feet high. And I don't care about the rest of it because there's not inside of that space. There's nothing. I can guarantee you, you control nothing when I'm on the floor. And if you come with that attitude, the rules, all of their constraints start to melt away. You become. We talked about this maybe a month or so. You become Jack Johnson. I'm whipping white men's ass in 1910. Matter of fact, you created a whole term of art because of Jack Johnson, Great White Hope, and they never had one. So what I'm saying is, it depends on out of this diverse experience that we have in this place, what do you choose to use to define you? Now you can't ignore the reality. So that's all. That's all there. I'm not saying block that out. I'm saying, how do you want to define yourself in the space? And with a good friend of mine, Al Chappelle, Maria's father, a long, long time ago, uh, we were talking. He said, "Well, there's two ways to look at it. You can say, so, they're doing this to us, but you don't ever have to legitimize that. You can say, well, what's the situation?" He said, "That's a fool that right now is stronger than me." But it's when you start to debate the proposition that you lend legitimacy to it. Because the fact that we're debating it, I'm presuming that your predicate has some merit. And uh, if I reject your predicate, we don't have nothing to talk about. And do, do, did you see the execution of Saddam Hussein 20 years? You know, they only showed that one time. They showed it live because they thought he was going to be a bitch when that time came, and he was going to be crying and messing in his pants. He went out pure gangster. They jumped when he stepped there, and like basically the attitude was, "Get on with it, bitch, let's go." And they ain't show, and George Bush and them ain't, white America ain't showed that since that day. So whatever you may have thought of him, or they thought of him, he damn sure was a grown ass man, because that's how he handled that moment. And I'm raising that issue because you're always in charge in that moment. It's what you said about, and you referenced, Charles referenced Miles earlier, or you. It ain't the wrong note. It's what you gonna play next. You happen to be here on these gallows, and you had nothing to do with that. But how you're here, you in total control of that. They can't control that. So even in the worst moment, you still own the bitch.
Absolutely. Kwame,
Yes, sir.
welcome. Good morning. Do
Good
you have any
morning. How's
thoughts about?
everybody doing?
Good. How
All
are
good.
you? Good.
I'm
Good.
good.
Good. You have any thoughts on this topic?
I think everybody on topic is right on point. You know, from every area, when you think about just how dynamic we are as a people and everything that we have to get through in order to reach these heights that everybody is mentioning. And I just think about, you have to develop the sense to stand strong and to fight against the the colonial attitude that's always attacking you. And not everybody has that ability to do that. I think that we are blessed that we have so many people in our culture that have had the ability to stand up and withstand that and to be themselves and to be authentically themselves in spite of the racism and oppression that is constantly coming at them. And it's constantly coming at you. I think about this week, I was working on a case, trying to get a resolution. And you going up against a system that is totally against you and a totally against you advocating on behalf of your client and trying to make you appear that you the fool for advocating on their behalf because they feel like what they offering you, you should just take it and be happy at what they are offering you and what they're telling you. And then you should have your own mindset about what you want to get out of it and what you think the resolution should ultimately be. Um, you know the difference, Larry, between just to give you an example, between a SIS, a suspended imposition of sentence, and a suspended execution of sentence. I was offered a SIS, which I was turning down, and they told me we've never had someone want to take a SIS to trial. And I told them, well, you do now. You know, not everybody wants a conviction. Not everybody wants a felony. You know, their whole position is that this Negro ought to be happy I'm giving this to him. You understand what I'm saying? The idea that you want
Absolutely.
to challenge that you
Well,
want to challenge us,
the predicate is that we're guilty,
right?
and that we are destitute from the very beginning, and this system couldn't work without gaslighting.
Right. And the thought that you don't want to take what I consider the best thing that we have in this office to give, and you gonna question that, and you Negro believe you could take this to trial and beat us. Or you cry, what is wrong with you? And everybody in the building got an attitude about it. The judges got an attitude, the prosecutors got an attitude, everybody has a problem, but people don't realize internally how strong we are and how strong we have to be to attack these systems head on, just like that. And we
And
do it, and we've been
and
doing it on a daily basis.
you're understating it because uh, it is as if everyone is calling you crazy.
Oh,
And you
everyone
are
is calling you crazy.
everyone
That's
is
what they
calling you
spread.
crazy, and that is our existence here.
That's
I
our
mean,
existence.
I
Not
mean,
only are they calling you crazy, they using you as the topic of conversation all across the building.
yeah, yeah, but
So
put them in a box, baby. Put 12 in the box and let's go
Just
then.
put them in the box and let's
Put them in the
go.
box and let's go, Playboy.
so a couple of things. So to be gas lit or gas lighted is to be colonized.
Right.
That's what this is. That's what this is. And so
And
this
then let
this is
me just
this
add this
is
one
this is
point.
what we're
Dr.
always up against.
Alexander, can I ask you about this one point and just how this plays into it? When it's your own people trying to colonize you. Now, you're not being gaslit by the white people. You're being gaslit by the black people who trying to colonize you.
Well, it's
Because they've been
blackface. It's
colonized.
blackface. Let's say
Black,
blackface.
that's what I meant,
But
blackface.
understand who they're representing. But I go ahead, Dr. Alexander.
And and
Gerald and I have looked at our first quarter cases, and we could use a little counseling session. Talk to us, Doc.
and so and again, like so that's the point of the known. Like folks, so if you talk to 10 people about Franz Fanon, they're gonna talk to you about cognitive dissonance. And I'm fairly certain that that's a misattribution. I ain't been able to find it in nothing that he's written. It certainly could have gotten lost in translation. But what people don't talk about is that Frantz Fanon's the significance of his work is his work on the colonized mind. And his point is
Come on,
that
Doc. Come on, Doc.
once you get rid of the colonizer, you still got to deal with the colonized because
Right,
they gonna
right.
hold they gonna hold the structure in the place. This is what So if we go back even to
And they seem
Carter
to
G,
fight harder. They seem to fight harder than the colonizer.
that is so. When we look at Carter G. Woodson and the miseducation of the Negro, he just goes through career categories and say how each of those persons is worthless to us because they come back to the community white. They don't come back to the community as a doctor, as a lawyer. They come back as a white doctor and a white lawyer and a white teacher. And they don't have the ability to come and serve. Well, they don't have the ability to appreciate Black consciousness
Right, right,
because
exactly.
they
They don't have the ability to
they
appreciate it,
they can't
and
do
when
it.
they come back feeling superior.
They come back with the
They come back
superiority
feeling
complex.
I'm a
Correct.
superior. Not only am I a doctor, but I'm a superior. I'm a superior doctor, and I'm gonna be even more. Uh, I'm gonna go the extra mile to be even additionally, even exceptionally white.
And so that's what it is, and that's what that's the fight all the time. And so, colonialism, white supremacy, racism, these are aggressive means. And so we always have to be, fighting because that propaganda is that prevalent because that's the purpose of it. And
One more
so,
question for you though.
mhm.
When you always have to fight like that, it's stressful, real stressful. And you always, or I don't know if people always, I tell you in my head, you always are going back and forth. You know that you have to fight and you should fight, but sometimes you will internally question yourself because everybody is talking about you are always the problem,
Well, it
or
certainly could be
you are always
lonely.
bringing the fight.
It could be
It's a,
lonely.
that's
Yes,
what I'm
but
saying. It's a lonely place to be because you don't have anybody else most of the time who understands what you're saying or what you're doing. And they just say, well, why don't you just take what they offering?
because
And it's an
they
uncertain place
identify
to
with
be.
the
It's an
aggressor.
uncertain place to be because you could be 100% right and they in the box get it wrong because of
Their
their
colonization.
their colonization. I'm
It's
sorry.
the
Go ahead, Doc.
colonized mind, right? And so that it creates a group think. And
Mm.
so that's what it is to be colonized. But again, so again, and this is like the beauty of Max Roach. Max Roach, he goes back and he talks about the sorrow songs, and then and in particular, he talks about the song "Were You There When They Crucified My Savior?" And so one of the things that's beautiful about that song is that there is no attribution for who actually wrote it. They just know it's a period song, and but what everybody is clear on is that that song is a metaphor, and it's our usage. This is emblematic of our creativity and resilience. It's our usage of Christian themes to give voice and mark our oppression in this system. And so, and so he speaks of that, and he said, even when you go through the song, there's uh, exchanges in the song between, at times they're saying cross, and at times they're saying tree, which lets you know that they're talking about either, whippings or lynchings, because they are talking about the trees. They're talking about the Savior being crucified on a tree. And so that's either a whipping or a lynching. And so, which comes all the way forward into, a contemporary of his, at least in part, some overlay between he and James Cone, and James Cone's writing uh, about the cross and the lynching tree, and that symbolism of state-sanctioned violence from from a Christian perspective, and the enslaved African, and the oppressed African in in this diasporic place, where those things overlap, and how we use our art forms, our creativity to combat that. And so another point that he makes is that our art has to be multifaceted. It can't just be for entertainment. it has to serve multiple points. And so he's talking about turning into us. So the how you fight the oppression, how you fight the the colonization and the ever-present onslaught is to find some relative comfort and solace in what is ours and what we clearly define and maintain.
Let me read a passage from Chinua Achebe's "There Was a Country," he talks about in this specific chapter the role of the writer in Africa. And I just want to get your opinion on this. There are a couple of pieces on here that I think that are germane to our conversation this morning. Um, And he starts, in part by saying, what I can say is that it was clear to many of us that an indigenous African literary renaissance was overdue. A major objective was to challenge stereotypes, myths, and the image of ourselves and our continent, and to recast them through stories, prose, poetry, essays, and books for our children. That was my overall goal. And he goes on to state that it was important to us that a body of work be developed of the highest possible quality that would oppose the negative discourse in some of the novels we encountered. By writing back to the West, we were attempting to reshape the dialogue between the colonized and the colonizer. Our efforts, we hoped, would broaden the world's understanding, appreciation, and conceptualization of what literature meant when including the African voice and perspective. We were clearly engaged in what Ode Agodi aptly refers to as the politics of representation. This is another way of stating the fact of what I consider to be my mission in life. My kind of storytelling has to add its voice to this universal storytelling before we can say, now we've heard it all. I worry when somebody from one particular tradition stands up and says, the novel is dead, the story is dead. I find this to be unfair. To put it mildly, you told your own story and now you're announcing the novel is dead. Well, I haven't told mine yet.
That's the whole point. And so and as we actually use that to transition to Sekou Toure. That that is the whole point here, is that in order for us to be to decolonize, to be free, we have to actively and intentionally separate ourselves from the thing. And so we literally have to tell our stories. Now, like what year was that? You're on mute. You're muted, Larry.
Let me look. This is, I think, 2012. Policy must read 2012. I believe 2012.
And so
And this is Chinua Achebe, There Was a Country. And I was reading from page 55, I believe, at 55, so I can give pinpoints, sites.
But in 2026, do you think we are moving more towards being more colonized, or we're becoming more conscious and trying to decolonize ourselves?
I think we're probably I think there I think we're so the issue in the conversation is the we. And so
Mhm.
I think to the degree that we continue, like those of us who even contemplate such a
Or
thing,
do you still think there is a we?
there's definitely a we.
Okay.
So the issue is that those of us who actually actively contemplate the piece end up in a space of actually trying to define the we. And that is we one thing we have to be clear about is that it just ain't never been no time when we was all gonna go.
Right.
That just ain't never been, and that's kind of fantasy. You
And
know,
what
And
we
that's a myth.
and
That's a
I
myth
think what
and a
we
fantasy.
need to I think what would help also is if we give credit, I shouldn't even say credit, but put the emphasis on the environment that has created
well,
this
yes, that's the whole point.
this self-alienation, because
Yes,
I mean, we've got to do a better job of that. Now, like Mike said when he was talking about Chauncey Billups, some of it, hey man, everybody can't go with us, and we that ain't our fight right now. You should know better. But at the at the same time, we still have to understand what the system is doing and continues to do, and fight against that and roll with the people that are rolling with us.
and so that's the thing. Oh, go ahead, Mike Jones.
Now, I was just going to say, since I got as our native, our indigenous brothers would say, I got some winners on you guys. I've seen more winners than you have,
For sure.
and
Bruh, that
and
is
what
pregnant. That is a pregnant statement.
and one of the things you realize when you get this late in the game is how you understand reality changes. And when you were younger in this struggle, you actually thought the struggle kind of started when you showed up and you would be the one to finish it. And I say this like I'm running 100 meters in the Olympics, okay? And I see myself breaking the tape and winning the gold medal. Then you get a little older and you start to understand now this struggle was a relay. And it's been going on before I get here. But in your vanity, you think you're running the anchor leg though. Okay, that you go get the baton and you'll be the one that crosses the line, busts the tape, and we win.
At
Okay,
best, you running the curve.
at best. Okay, and really, you got the baton from somebody. Your job will be to run the best legs you can, make up some ground if we lost it, try to give us a lead if we got one, and then you're gonna hand it off to somebody else. Okay, I mean, and you have to come to grips,
With
not
that.
with that grips, come to grips with long because it's just you learn to accept that time was here before you, time was here with you, and there'll be time after you.
You.
Okay.
Exactly.
And so out of all the philosophers I've read, uh, Camus has always made the biggest impact on me. Because the relationship, he's right, the relationship between us and the universe is absurd. Okay. We ain't got nothing but questions, and the universe don't never give no answers. So fundamentally, you're left to decide how you're going to define yourself in the universe. It's your existential reality. And once you kind of get okay with that, everybody else's shit don't matter, man. It really, I mean, and that's why I mean, say you don't care where you play no more. You don't care who you playing against because it ain't gonna matter. Because you're going to do what you do, no matter what anybody else does. And now I ain't gonna say the unfortunate thing in life. Part of the arc of being a human being is finally understanding that and being at peace with it. And that's and this is not my eulogy or anything, but when folks get real old and everybody say, well, you got to stay here, and you hear uh, a brother or sister say, "No, I'm done." Okay, now that don't make sense to nobody still running the race. You say, but somebody said, "I'm done." Okay, I'm good. Don't worry about it. Okay, I passed the baton. Okay, you've been Isaiah to who came after him, because they asked for a double portion of what Isaiah had. He said, "Well, I'm gonna lay the mantle down. You can pick it up, but I'm done." Okay, and fundamentally, it's you against the universe. You like to think it's us against the universe, but in reality, it's you against the universe. But you get to define the struggle, man. You can pick up as much weight as you want. Okay, and the fact that other people ain't picking it up gets to be irrelevant. Okay, and I'll say with our little sports thing, it's a Kobe Bryant mentality about working out. Okay, that you'll never be better than me because you won't put in more work than me. You can't outwork me. If you come to the gym for 2 hours, I'm gonna be there for 3 hours, and I mean you gonna know I've been there 3 hours. Because when you get ready to leave, I was here when you got here. When you left, I'm still here. And you say, damn, who is this brother? Okay. And I'm who you got to see when the shit starts. So it's owning your space and you decide what is it in Invictus, that all of us have to learn. That no matter how straight they get, I'm the master of my fate, the captain of my soul, man. Period. That kind of says it all. And in the beginning, I thank whatever guides may be for my unconquerable soul. You put the beginning with that end, and that's all it is to it. And the rest of the shit is just details.
And and so we have to look at this thing from that perspective as well, in that this is what is. So white supremacy is a worldwide phenomenon.
Phenomenal. Right.
This is what they do. This is how they relate to the world and the people in it. Period. And so while Max Roach is here doing Max Roach stuff, Sekou Toure is in Guinea fighting the colonial power in that space. And I'm gonna read it. And so his birthday was Friday. So I got a quote for him that I think is apropos for this conversation, and is definitely apropos for for folks feeling a certain kind of way for things like uh, uh, awards time and recognition for our cultural arts. When you are praised by the colonists, it means that you are bad for your people. When they say you are bad, it means that you are good for your people. The day they say I am good, that'll mean I betrayed you. And
I
Send me that
love
quote.
that quote.
I
I
do too.
love
I
that
love
quote.
that too. Make sure you send that to me because I got some people I need to share that with,
and
especially
so
in my profession.
so Sekou Toure he was the first uh, president of Guinea after the colonial rule of France. And so France said, okay, we gonna do away with the existing colonial structure, but we want to have kind of like this partnership and stay attached, but just not the same colonial piece. And he said no. He said we don't want to do that. We're going to be independent. And again, like one of the things that that impact and adversely impact our thoughts on the continent is this tendency to romanticize life on the continent as we were going through whatever it is we're going through over here, when in reality, they were colonized, and it's
Every place except
it's
Ethiopia.
it's the same thing, you know. So
Yes.
colonization is the same thing as slavery, and you know, depending on the various parts of the continent, that stuff lasted well into, you know, really it lasts
To
well into
today.
the 90s when
To
you're
today.
dealing with South Africa and you're dealing with apartheid. And so, in much the same way, and again, this is why we even know who Fanon is, because Fanon is fighting this stuff in Algeria. But um, in much the same way, we're miseducated, they're miseducated. And so one of the things that Sekou Toure does is he leverages the you know, what's foundational and fundamental to separating from the French is a cultural renaissance. You know, so again, it's necessary for the people of Guinea to know, you know, their history, to know their culture, to live and breathe their culture. And so that is fundamental to this fight. And so we also know him because of because he too is a Pan-Africanist. And he partners with Kwame Nkrumah when Ghana is also, you know,
Taking their
free of the
independence.
colonial power,
Mm-hmm.
you know, you know, he offered, you know, assistance and shelter and support to Malcolm when Malcolm, you know, visited Africa and was visiting the various African nations, and also with regard to his trip to Egypt, he offered support and provided support to Stokely Carmichael and Miriam Makeba. Like this, he is a Pan Africanist, right? That's who he. That's how we should know him. And when we see what's going on today in the Sahel states, and we're, you know, when we see what's going on with Mali and Burkina Faso and Niger, this is the same fight. They've all continued that fight to rid themselves of French control. You know, so we can see in that time frame after uh, after the reign of Sekou Toure, that they fall back into the grasp of the French. That's why we know these brothers today, because these brothers today say we can't do that, and so they do the same thing in terms of being done with that. And not only do they make that determination, they make a determination that they're not going to deal with anybody who can't really free themselves of their relative colonial power. You know, and so they are practicing today, you know, what was being practiced then. So when Toure and Ghana, back to Ghana, what's my brother's name again?
Kwame,
It's
Kwame,
Kwame
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 Nkrumah.
Nkrumah. When
when
the
when
African
the
National
Toure
Congress.
and so they're gonna, so at that point it was going to be Guinea, Ghana, and Mali. And so today we have Mali, Burkina Faso, and um, and Niger. So same principle, same battle. One of the things that we're hearing today that makes it, you know, that it is certainly different in form, but fundamentally it's still a same piece. And that, today they say, well, these guys today, this is a military junta, as opposed to when you're looking at Nkrumah and you're looking at Toure, those were socialist movements. Well, still at the base of what these brothers are talking about today, is their current conceptualization of what should be their cultural foundation. And for them, their cultural foundation should be kind of predicated around Islam. Now, I don't know that any of them have, any kind of conflicted or negative thoughts about what traditional pieces are going on in their respective countries. That in and of itself will require some more study. But what they are solidly fixed on is that whatever they're going to do amongst themselves in support of themselves, predicated on what is good for them, meaning their countries, not the external power of France. And so that's where you have that's where the dynamic does not change. The thing is the same, is that they want to be, and each of them want to be internally run, and they want to find support from each other, and they maintain the Pan-Africanist view. And what we see today is an extension of the work that we saw with Sekou Toure.
I think what we don't do a good job of is understanding that the world or reality evolves. And as it evolves, it changes, not gets better or worse, but just it changes. And that's kind of consistent with Einstein's physics, that the universe is expanding. It is not Newton's universe of being constant. This is it, and this is the way it will always be. Now, what it is today is going to be it's going to be a different universe tomorrow, and that requires you to evolve with it. And by evolve, I don't mean fundamentally change but your understanding of what's going on has to evolve with the changes in the universe. One of the things that I would suggest, that fundamentally people, I mean, I'm going to say superstitious, okay? I said earlier that the universe, we have questions and the universe never gives answers. So we create answers for us. We don't do this. We don't create answers individually, although some of us do. We create mass answers for however we're defining humanity, and that's where things like religion and all dogmas come from. So
Exactly.
I'm gonna give you a theory of the universe that you can live with. Now the problem with that is, for this theory to work, you have to accept it without questioning it and operate like it's absolute certainty. And so by definition, nobody would want to hear that, but whatever your particular dogma is, to the extent that you're dogmatic, you fundamentally are not evolving with the universe. And that the little, you have to become comfortable with the idea of a lack of certainty and predictability. And we don't particularly do that well. I'll critique uh, the black church and our take on religion as a dogma in our community. Invariably, any gathering of black people, I won't say black gathering, any gathering of black people, somebody will be talking about their good fortune or something good happened, and and they'll say God is good, so God gets the credit. When it's screwed up, God ain't never responsible. So the point is, he gets credit for everything good. What happens to when it went bad? And the problem with that very notion on both ends is it denies you your sense of agency as a human being. That you have given away your agency to a dogma, and it's just one step down from God to the king or the powers that be, and literally all of that flows the same way. So fundamentally, we don't we're uncomfortable questioning. Matter of fact, we teach our kids not to question.
Mm.
Uh, 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 you'll tell a child something, and a child will want to know why. And the adult response is, "Don't question me."
Slaves
Mhm.
don't get to ask why. That's part
Right.
of
Uh,
that's part of that slave dogma. Yeah,
but now,
Yeah,
but
I
we
think
do.
that is. I think it's a carryover that
yeah.
slave
You don't
mentality
get to
Yeah,
ask why.
of not wanting to ask questions or to challenge authority.
but
And go ahead.
no,
I was
I
just
was
gonna say
just gonna
about the.
say. So
Go
you
ahead.
get conditioned as a
Right.
child
Right.
To
not to question authority, as
Hmm.
opposed to, uh, son, you asked me a question. Let me give you the answer to the best of my knowledge.
and
Right.
we beat the curiosity out of our children.
Yeah, literally, we beat the
We
curiosity out
beat
of.
the curiosity out of them, and on top of that, that predictability sense that you talked about keeps us in bad relationships with this colonizer.
So can
Because
I give you another quote?
man,
This
Okay,
this
absolutely.
is this is Toure again. Thus, the true political leaders of Africa, whose thought and attitude tends towards the national liberation of their people, can only be committed men, fundamentally committed against all the forms and forces of depersonalization of African culture. They represent, by the anti colonist nature and the national content of their struggle, the cultural values of their society mobilized against colonization. So again, so the whole piece is whoever we are, whatever our role is, it has to be anti-colonist. It has to be decolonist. That has to be our you know our perception of things. And so when Mike uses the universe, our universe, when we look at the universe, we got to know we're looking. So if there's one thing, so there's a universe, it's this one thing, we got to know we are necessarily looking at this thing differently than them.
all right.
it, can't, it can't be the same. And so
But that's where the fundamental problem is with us right now because we cannot separate
that's
from
what the
not looking
fundamental
at it
problem is all the time. It's,
right.
that's the nature of this relationship.
And as we
But it's
mentioned
getting. I think
earlier,
it's.
the
Go
we
ahead.
that we're talking about is not the same we they're talking about. They're talking
Right.
about us.
Yes.
Us got a problem. The we talking about is us, is the we that we are meaning in our community. But
But
Yeah, I'm talking about the we in our
no, I'm
community.
not talking about you. I'm talking about them, the individuals that are embracing colonialism and blackface, but don't understand that they are.
Right.
correct.
No, I think they understand what they're doing. They clearly aware of what they're doing. I don't
Well,
think they don't understand.
they understand that they are trying to get closer to white folks, and
Right.
so, but again,
And they tell you right off.
and so,
I
but
don't, I
we
don't, I don't, I don't think everyone does. I don't think that they understand. First of all, I don't think we have a very good understanding of what violence is. So they don't understand that redlining is violent, violence that will perpetuate against us for 200 years. They don't understand that these food deserts are violence that can be rectified by the government that we pay taxes to, and healthcare and the health disparity, all of those violent acts. And so when you see them cozying up to these powers, I just don't think they have a good idea of what they're doing. Even if it is, I want my child to have the same education as the individuals that are out in the suburban schools or whatever, not knowing that you're sending your child to a school sitting next to a person that wants to maintain the status quo. And in order for your child to thrive, they've got to be progressive on one end, or revolutionary. So it's just, I mean, I don't think we are fully cognizant of what's going on.
well, I don't know that again. I think if if it is a goal for, let's say, if it's the goal of the majority of folks that look like us, for us to all come together to do blah 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 blah, I think that's fantasy. If that is in fact the goal, I don't know that that's the goal, but if that is the goal, then I think that's fantasy. But um, I also, I think I mean, if we look at it the same way that we're critical of folks that come here, again, it's a tough sell. Like we want folks to look at us and say, okay, I'm riding with them. This ain't no easy go. And so you're gonna align with power. That's how to think. That's why it works. That's why it works. And so even the folks who look like us, they it's gonna be a significant
Charles,
number of
wait,
them that align with them.
wait a minute. And Charles, the key thing we should understand is that everybody that comes here but us are making an individual decision to leave someplace else and come here. So they have evaluated their circumstances and
Mm-hmm.
made a judgment. And so at this point, they said America screwed up America. Even if I'm an immigrant of color, I think I like my odds better there than I like here. Now that might not be true in mass, if
Mm-hmm.
you aggregate everybody, but any individual can figure out how to make that true because it could be specifically true for you. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
or you, yeah, and so it's not so much of a contradiction. It's just different ways to measure the reality. We're always measuring it in the aggregate because that's our American experience. We all got here together. We all got rounded up together. Our ancestors didn't even know each other when they got on the boat. They ended up here, and they were throwing. And no matter what they did, they were always together. So we have this concept of us as a nation. Everybody else that comes here, even if they look like us, they operate on an individual basis. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
and so they look at it like, well, okay, who got the best hand? Who got the worst hand? I think I want to be over here with these brothers because they got this terrible hand, and I want to play on that team, as opposed to the reason I came here was not to make humanity better. The reason I came here was to make me better.
Yeah.
So
And
I gravitate toward the one that makes the most sense for me as the individual, which can put me at odds with this group over here to the extent that the group is functioning as a group. But when I look at our group, we ain't all together no more. So how can you ask somebody else who just got here trying to figure out, I want you to ride with us when we ain't riding with us? Okay, so
Mhm.
I mean, that's all part of the analysis. And
and I think that right there is the major problem, Mike,
yeah,
because
well,
they come with the idea already that we are not the group to run with, and then when they see the dysfunction in the group, they automatically go to the colonists.
well, I
No,
mean,
they come that way. They don't.
yeah, they
Well, they
kind
come
of,
that way. They do
wait,
come that way.
wait,
They
they
not
They come
came.
that
coming
way.
here for
That's
us.
why they
They never
came.
come here for us.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's why
and
they
we need to
came.
quit thinking that they are. I mean,
Right.
that's a waste of our energy.
Wait a minute. They didn't say they came here for us.
Right.
We put that
We
on
say
them.
that.
We say
Hmm.
that. You ain't never heard nobody say that. That the reason I came to America was to liberate black people. Man, ain't
Ain't
nobody
nobody
ever
said
said.
that.
But is it unreasonable to think that we
Yeah,
cannot come
it's
together with
unreasonable.
those individuals and
It's
help liberate,
yeah, it's
Help
unreasonable.
liberate them.
uh, help liberate us? Is it
Yeah, it's
unreasonable to
unreasonable.
It
think?
is unreasonable.
It
Why are
is
they?
Okay,
unreasonable.
If they was
Okay.
going, if they was gonna fight the power, they could have stayed where they was.
Well, right.
That's why they
right.
came here. They came here thinking they weren't gonna have to
Because
fight the
they don't
power.
want to fight. They come
That's
here
why
because
they
they
came here.
came here. I get it.
Yeah.
I
And
Right.
get it.
so then we get mad because da 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 da
Because
that
we
they
have a
wasn't
high
here.
expectation for them, and we
No,
don't even have that.
we have a fantasy. That ain't even an
We got a
expectation.
fantasy.
Yeah,
Yes.
we
Okay.
got a fantasy. Okay. And expectation is an assumption based on some reasonable empirical data. We ain't got no empirical basis to make that judgment. Okay.
So, do
And
you also think it's a fantasy that we can come together?
Again, I think the issue is what are you
I think
saying the we?
I
yeah,
don't think so. We just did. 88% of us as black males voted for Kamala. 90
right.
over 95% voted for black women voted for. We come together on things when it matters. Now, enough of us didn't come out and vote, but I mean,
So
like you
the
said,
issue is we keep underestimating the foe. This
Right.
thing
Right.
overthrow. They just went and took a president. They just went to Venezuela, scooped up dude and his wife, and now talking about how they gonna divvy up the booty. That's what they doing. So if they can go and like and shame on anybody like this is Trump. I mean, we had this conversation before. In our lifetimes, we've seen them do this over and over again. Before us, they were doing this. This is why we
Right.
here.
Right.
And so this is what this thing does. And then part of also a manifestation of the colonization of your mind is that you think it's your heart that we like this. This is this is part and parcel of
Yeah.
the experiment,
Us
of the
being
colonial
here,
experiment.
yeah, us being here and screwed over ain't it wasn't an accident.
This is how it's
Okay.
supposed to look.
Yeah. This was intentional. Okay. And I go back to something I've said over the years as we do this. What we fundamentally lack is a black theory of the case. Now, we used to have these arguments. It could be a Du Bois, Marcus Garvey argument. It could be a Malcolm versus Martin argument. But we were arguing about a black theory of the case. Matter of fact, white folks were not in that discussion. This was an argument inside of our intellectual political community, leadership community, saying, okay, who do we think America is? I think it's this. And if it means if they're that, then we ought to be doing this stuff. Somebody else says, nah, they ain't that. They more like this. And so we ought to be over here. So literally everything for 200 years, for 400 years of slavery and Jim Crow, we had black theory of the cases. Now we didn't have a unanimous theory of the case where everybody agreed this is the play. But literally, you could put black people in a space about what they thought about based on how they thought about America and white folks. Okay, and that was our internal debate. I would suggest post civil rights, post 1965, we are completely ignorant of who we are and what America is. And so we're now, and part of the reason we look so confused is because we're not having an internal debate about X versus Y. We are completely sit adrift intellectually, philosophically about America and who we are. Because, for example, there was a group of black folks that was very clear about capitalism. On that, when Martin and Dr. King, I mean Martin and Malcolm would agree that fundamentally you can't have a critique of America and black people that don't include a critique on capitalism. And right now, everybody that can rub two nickels together want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, I think I said last week, you can't find the last time any significant black leader gave a speech about education, employment with livable wages, affordable housing. That's nowhere on the political. We got 67 black members of Congress, and that ain't on none of them's agenda. Okay,
Right
literally.
now in Texas, somebody believes it's a good idea for Jasmine Crockett to run for Senate and for Freddie Haynes to run for her seat. That don't make no sense.
And that's what I come back to, the entrepreneurial nature of our politics. So, and how we define us now is me. And since this is Sunday morning that we're doing this, and the reason I like, as a non-Christian theologian, the reason I like referencing the Bible is I get a chance to take these very great parables and stories and use them to another point. And Gerald, this is to your point that you raise about us, and it's the story about Jesus was talking in the house. He was talking to folks, and somebody came up to him and said, "Hey, Jesus, your mama and your brothers are outside. They need to see you." And Jesus stopped and said, "Huh?" He said, "Yeah, your mama, your brothers, they outside. They won't come in. They won't come in because they need to tell you something." And Jesus don't say bring them in. He asked a profound question: who are my brothers? So Gerald, that is the question. But then he answers the question: my brothers are not my mama's other children.
Mm-hmm.
My brothers are the folks that believe what I believe.
The folks who ride with me.
The
Right.
folks who ride with me, not my mama's other son.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so historically, when we were talking about to each other and calling each other brother, and we do that still, but we referencing brother like Jesus was referencing brother. He's a brother because we ride together. Okay? Not because we related, even though we could be related. Okay? But we ride together. That's why we brother. He rolls like I roll. I mean, if he can count on me, I can count on him. So fundamentally, when somebody say your brother's out there, well, maybe my brother is, maybe he ain't. You talking about my brother or my mama's other son? Two different things. Now
I don't.
that ain't the way they teach it in the seminary, Larry. But it means something else in the seminary, I'm sure. But
Well, there's a big
fundamentally,
difference between the lab and applications, and I'm one that that prefers application. You can get a physicist to show me what a cross court pass looks like, but it takes somebody that knows what they're doing to apply it. So I think that's a wonderful place to start right now. I mean, to stop right now. I think Mike Jones, you summed it up quite apropos. But I would like to get a closing thought from everyone else. Dr. Kwame, let me have a closing thought. Give us one to build upon for this week, sir.
Know your brother. Know who really is your brother, and only run with those who run with you.
That's for sure. Dr. Alexander.
Yeah, our culture is the cure. And so, in order to refute this onslaught, we got to get grounded in our experience, our cultural forms, our history. We have to know and understand these things and, the actual legacy of our experience so that we can make the right decisions now and that we can, literally develop that theory of the case and practice accordingly.
And I would just add, I'll quote that carpenter in Bethlehem one more time. As a man thinketh, so he is.
Yes, indeed. And I just want to say, decolonize something this week about your life. Your spending habits, your diet. Decolonizing your diet will take you a long way. And if you don't know what I mean, Google it. But we have been sold a bag of goods here, and understand that you're enough. And we thank you for joining the level set today. And we look forward to being in community with you soon. And have a great week.